Hi folks, so we're going to move on to the next topic now, which is all about leadership. Okay, so we need to know the difference between management and leadership. Pretty straightforward. Leadership is just one aspect of management, but we'll come back to that in a moment. And you need to know 4 types of leadership styles. So 4 approaches that leaders may take with their staff, what might be the relative benefits and negatives or applications for each of the 4. So what kind of business is more likely to use each one? When might they use it? Might they change over time? Basically just the consideration of these 4 leadership styles. Okay, so management then there are many different definitions, so you might see different ones when you're doing your own research, but I've said it's the activities of setting the strategy of an organisation, a business, and coordinating the efforts of its employees. And it's widely regarded that there's 5 main activities. So planning, organising, commanding, coordinating, and controlling. Okay, so management is a really, really broad activity where you're planning for the future, organising your resources, commanding workers, coordinating different workers in different departments and different resources, and then controlling the resources within a business. Okay, leadership then is a much narrower and simpler kind of idea, and it's the coordination and motivating a team to achieve common goals and objectives. That's what a leader does. Okay, so they coordinate and motivate their workers to achieve common goals. So that's whether that could be a sports team, that could be an organization, that could even just be in a small group when you're doing a project in school. Okay, so leadership is coordinating and motivating a team to achieve common goals and objectives. So leadership is one aspect of management, where management is a much broader job with more involved. Okay, so there are 4 leadership styles, and the way we're going to do this is on a sort of timeline. Okay, so you can see I've got not a timeline, on a I don't know what I'd call it, on a line. Okay, so at the far left we've got the minimum, and by minimum I mean worker feedback, freedom and involvement, and then the maximum, worker freedom, worker feedback and worker involvement. Okay, so basically it's a scale of how much does each leader listen to their workers, allow them to work independently, and do they encourage one-way communication or two-way communication? Okay, so at the far end of the scale, we've got what's known as autocratic leadership. Okay, so power is held by the few, so the managers hold all the decision-making power. We've got one-way communication, and that's downwards, so down the chain of command, down the hierarchy. So basically, communication is one way. There's no time for feedback or involvement, so workers' opinions and ideas are not considered. The communication comes down the chain of command, so therefore we get very fast and clear instructions. It's very clear what everybody's role is. It's very clear what the business expects from them. Okay, so you can start thinking, why might that be useful? Why might it not be useful? We'll come to that when we get to the worksheet later. Okay, so moving on from autocratic, we've got what's known as paternalistic. Okay, so very similar, power is still held by the few, so that's similar to autocratic, but now we've got some two-way communication. So the leaders are willing to listen to their subordinates, but ultimately decisions are made by the managers. So they do ask for feedback, they do ask for involvement, they do kind of care for their subordinates and are interested in what they think, but ultimately major decisions are taken by managers. Okay, I guess you could kind of think of this as the classroom situation with the student and the teacher, where ultimately the teacher dictates what's going to be happening in each lesson, but there is some space for feedback, communication. I don't like that, or can we do that again, or I want to spend more time on that, and that dictates somewhat to what goes on. But ultimately it's the teacher, in our example, that's making all the key decisions. Okay? So moving down the scale again, we have democratic leadership. Okay, so this would be where feedback and involvement is key. Okay, obviously you know what a democracy is, voting, asking for feedback from the people. So now we've definitely got two-way communication. We've got up and down the chain of command. We've got communication. We're talking about equality, conversations with staff, voting, staff are consulting on major decisions, their input is welcome. It's a very much a two-way collaborative leadership style. Okay, And then at the other end of the spectrum, we've got laissez-faire, okay, which basically means let them be or let them do. I don't know, I'm not French, but it basically means let them be, okay? So work is set, so a task is set and a deadline is set, but workers aren't given exact instructions. So we've still got one-way communication, okay, so there isn't a huge amount of feedback, and that's because workers are trusted to complete tasks in the best way that they can. Okay, so workers are trusted and empowered to complete tasks without close supervision. So you might say, we need this project done by this date, this new website or this new logo or this new marketing campaign. Solve it and work however you feel is best. Okay? So you can see, that's why I think it's useful to put it on a scale, because we go from the very extreme to autocratic, to slightly more two-way paternalistic, to very two-way with democratic, to very free and open with laissez-faire. Okay? So obviously, sorry, one last point there. So for laissez-faire, creativity and freedom are encouraged. Okay. Oof. So what I need to do, have a quick look at this picture. Which one, we've got 3 styles on the image here. Which one do you think represents each leadership style? Okay, so just have a look for a minute and then we'll have a chat in a second. Okay, so the first picture is obviously autocratic. We've got the arrows coming down the hierarchy and the line manager is telling their subordinates, do X, whatever X is, instructions. Okay, so do this and this is how you're going to do it. Okay? The middle one is laissez-faire. Again, one-way communication, you can see with the arrows. Do X or Y as you see fit. So they're given freedom and they're given the choice of how they want to complete the task. Okay? And then which is best, X or Y? And clearly that's democratic because there's two-way communication. You can see the arrows are upwards and downwards and they're asking for worker feedback. Okay? So you need to know, if we go back to the spec, okay, so as you can see, you need to know the types of leadership: autocratic, paternalistic, democratic, laissez-faire, and the distinction between management and leadership, which we've discussed in this video. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now is open up this file. Okay, so I'll set this as an assignment, and then I'll check it, and then once we're happy with it, we can copy and paste it into our main notes file. So you've got the spec, just to kind of focus on what we're doing, and then you've just got some spaces for management is, leadership is. There are 4 recognized leadership styles, so obviously you can put the 4 names in, describe each one in detail, so give a description of each of the 4, and then we're going to do a quick evaluation of the positives and negatives. So what are the positives and typical uses of autocratic, and what are some of the negatives and limitations? Okay, I'm not really going to go through this as such, so have a think. If someone's making all the decisions, why might that be good? Why might that be bad? Use your analytical and evaluative skills to come up with some points. Okay? Then we've got some scenarios, and you need to suggest and explain why each one would be suitable. So in times of crisis, when emergencies occur, which leadership style would be best and why? So we've got a few of those. Okay, we can I'll have a look at these and give you some feedback once you've done it. And then the final part is develop a list of factors that would influence which leadership style a manager might implement. So what would be some general factors that a manager or a leader would need to consider when choosing what leadership style to implement in their organization. Okay, so obviously I'll be online during our normal lesson time tomorrow after lunch. Or Monday if you're watching this video on Monday. But yeah, any emails, any problems, drop me an email or drop a comment and we can sort this out. Penultimate topic this, we are getting towards the end of the AS content. Okay, so watch the video and fill in this worksheet. Okay.